What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the career of actress Sigourney Weaver. And when you are talking about Sigourney Weaver's career, you have to start with her most iconic role and the role that made her famous in the first place, and that's Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise. Weaver played the character 4 times in 1979's Alien, 1986's Aliens, 1992's Alien 3, and 1997's Alien Resurrection. And the brilliance of the first Alien movie is the first time you watch it, it's not obvious or clear that Weaver's Ripley is the most important character in it. Nowadays, it is obvious who the lead character of big movies are. The first film is way more of an ensemble piece. There's always been a great debate between movie fans which is the better movie, Ridley Scott's Alien or James Cameron's Aliens. Personally, I like Alien over Aliens, but I will admit that Weaver takes the role of Ripley to another level in the sequel film. Weaver was asked by Christina Radish of Collider what her favorite Alien movie is, and here's what the star had to say, quote, "Oh goodness, that's difficult. The best constructed story for the character to tell was in Aliens, just because Jim Cameron has such an amazing sense of structure of story. To take this character out of her hypersleep, have no one believe her, have her be exiled into this limbo land where no one believes her, and her family's dead. The whole setup for Ripley and Aliens, and then when she ends up doing and what it finding this new family by the end. The whole structure of that story to me was gold. I always felt that I could jump up and down on it. It was such a great supportive arc for the character. In that sense, the second one for Ripley is probably the most satisfying," end quote. So basically what Sigourney Weaver is saying is not that Aliens is a better movie than Alien, just that her character is given a better arc. And I understand why she feels this way. She's given way more to do in Aliens than she is an Alien. Then you have the other 2 Ripley movies of the franchise, Alien 3 and Resurrection, and they are just okay. I recently watched them. I think they're visually interesting. I think they have some good performances. Sigourney Weaver is really good, especially in Alien Resurrection. I was quite digging what she was doing in that movie. She was trying to do something different, playing the character for the 4th time. She was really going for it more than most actors do when they play an iconic role again. Where those movies fail to me is more on the story aspect of the films. Visually, they're interesting. The performances are good. It's the plot of those movies that are just crazy bonkers sometimes. Most actors only get to be a part of one beloved franchise, if that. Sigourney Weaver is, of course, part of another giant 1980s franchise, Ghostbusters, where she played Dana Barrett, who in the first movie calls the Ghostbusters after her apartment is haunted. She and Bill Murray have incredible chemistry in the first movie. Ghostbusters, as you know, was a gigantic hit, the highest grossing film of 1984. I mean, you don't get culturally more relevant than Alien and Ghostbusters. I mean, to be a major part of both franchises is an actor's dream. Like, I don't even know what the modern day equivalent is. I was thinking maybe it was when Jennifer Lawrence was in the Hunger Games and the X-Men movies, but if we're being completely honest, those movies aren't near as big as Alien and the Ghostbuster films. Besides Ridley Scott and James Cameron in the 80s, Weaver also worked with master directors Peter Weir on The Art of Living Dangerously. I just want to say that Peter Weir is one of those great directors we don't talk about enough. I mean, the guy directed both Dead Poets Society and The Truman Show. In The Year of Living Dangerously, I really liked the chemistry between a young Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver. Weaver also worked with Mike Nichols on Working Girl with Melanie Griffith and Harrison Ford, where she played self-obsessed Catherine, basically the villain of the film. When we're looking at the careers of actors, a lot of people like to ask the question, is this a movie star or a great actor? And with Weaver, the answer is clearly both. She is someone who can sell a movie on her own and give the best performance in the film. She doesn't have a persona that she brings from movie to movie. So in a sense, she's a character actor who happens to be a big movie star, and it's a very rare thing to be both. Oscar nominations. Sigourney Weaver has 3 of them in her illustrious career. career, the most important one being for Aliens. For someone to get an Oscar nomination for not only a sci-fi, but also for a sequel, to this day, we still don't get a lot of Oscar nominations like this. For example, the only performance in a Marvel film that has gotten an Oscar nomination was Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever. The Academy historically doesn't care for franchise filmmaking. Only one Star Wars actor has gotten an Oscar nomination, Alec Guinness for the first film. Sigourney Weaver getting an Oscar nomination for Aliens is one of the best Oscar nominations of all time. 1988 was a huge year for Sigourney Weaver, as she was nominated twice for Working Girl and Gorillas in the Mist, where she played Diane Fossey, famous for studying gorillas. Weaver is one of 7 actresses since 1982 to get multiple acting nominations in one year. When people talk about the most famous actresses who haven't won the Oscar, they always bring up the names Glenn Close and Amy Adams. They never mention the name Sigourney Weaver. I mean, this is the star of the Alien franchise. This is the star of the Ghostbusters franchise. I mean, it is kind of insane that Sigourney Weaver does not have a golden statue at this point. If I could go in a time machine and give her one, it would be for Aliens. I think that should be the Oscar win for Sigourney Weaver. It's hard not to look at the career of Sigourney Weaver and not say the 80s were the height of her superstardom, but that doesn't mean she hasn't done good work since. The 90s had 2 of her funniest movies, Dave, where she played the unhappy first lady. This is a movie she should have gotten an Oscar nomination for. I think she is hilarious in this movie, and her chemistry with Kevin Kline is palpable. From a comedic standpoint, Ivan Reitman was able to get the best out of Sigourney Weaver and Dave. Then you have Galaxy Quest, where she plays an actress from a Star Trek type show who meets real aliens. It's a funny satire and was back when Tim Allen was the lead of good movies. I mean, what's interesting about this movie is that they have Sigourney Weaver, one of the leads of the biggest science fiction franchise of all time, being in a satire about these type of shows and movies. She was also in Ang Lee's The Ice Storm, again working with Kevin Kline. I would say what I like about this performance and throughout her career, her willingness to play complicated characters. Like, she doesn't always play what people would say the most likable of characters. She's also someone who clearly doesn't have to be the lead of a movie. Like, again, Ghostbusters is a clear example of that. She was in Ghostbusters. She's not the face of Ghostbusters. That's clearly Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis. Those are bigger figures in the history of Ghostbusters. But her willingness to be a part of that after the success of Alien, to take a supporting role in a franchise like that. And it clearly ended up being the right decision to do. The first time I personally saw Sigourney Weaver in a movie was in the film adaptation of Holes, where she plays Louise Walker, who was having troubled kids dig holes in search of a lost fortune. And I think that's a relatable story for kids my age. Like, this was the first time we saw Sigourney Weaver. I had no idea she was a massive movie star. She was just in this Disney family-friendly movie that I rewatched over and over again. And then you go back and realize, oh, this is the star of Ghostbusters and Alien. Holes is a pivotal movie for people my age, and Sigourney Weaver is really good in it. She also has a role in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Now, this is a film that everyone has strong feelings on. Some people think it's one of M. Night Shyamalan's masterworks, and some people think it's the beginning of his demise as a great filmmaker. For the record, I'm more of the former. I really like The Village. And I like the fact that 2 of the biggest movie stars of the 1980s have pivotal roles in it. That's William Hurt and Sigourney Weaver. Weaver might not be in movies as popular as she was in the 1980s outside of the Avatar films, but she's still giving really good performances, particularly in My Salinger Year and Paul Schrader's The Master Gardener. Weaver, to me, is someone who has had a well-balanced career. She's done sci-fi, comedies, prestige movies, and everything in between, and the movies she's been in are timeless. Alien, Ghostbusters, they are as culturally relevant as ever, and her performances in them are brilliant. I mean, going back and watching her filmography for this podcast, there's not one movie where I go, wow, Sigourney Weaver is the problem here. Even in the lesser films, I'm like, she's really bringing it. It's the rest of the movie that's bringing her down. And I also look at her as a performer who does take risk. Like, I watched Gorillas in in the Mist, and she's really going for it playing Diane Fossey, and it's a performance that really works. Another example is The Year of Living Dangerously. I mean, she does an accent in that film. I mean, that could go terribly wrong for an American actress, but I found it to be super effective. I think it's always interesting to know how an actress chooses the movies that she's in. Here's what Weaver told Kyle Buchanan of the New York Times on how she chooses the film roles. Quote, "It's never about the roles for me ever. It's about the script. I don't even care who the director is. I was an English major. I can't help it. I know about structure, beginning, middle, end, and I know the story has to be about more than the people in it. If it doesn't pass those tests, I don't care how good you are. It's not for me. The next thing is the director and their vision, and to work with someone who's passionate, not with someone who says, well, let's get this over with," end quote. In reading that quote, it makes a lot of sense when you look at her career and how consistent it has been. I mean, her filmography is better than most people. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming movies that Sigourney Weaver has on the way. The Gorge, a film that has her with Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller from horror director Scott Derrickson. Now, this is a movie I'm super pumped for. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy is coming off of Furiosa. Miles Teller is coming off of Top Gun Maverick. They are at the peaks of their career. They're trying to become bigger and bigger movie stars, and here they are being teamed up with a big movie star in her own right, Sigourney Weaver. And Derrickson has an excellent track record with Doctor Strange and the Black Phone. She also has the movie Dust Bunny with Mads Mikkelsen and David Dastmalchian. I mean, those are interesting performers. I mean, Mads Mikkelsen in a movie with Sigourney Weaver, sign me up for that. And Weaver just told Deadline that she will be in the Star Wars movie The Mandalorian and Grogu along with Pedro Pascal. This to me is a massive deal. The star of the Alien franchise is joining the Star Wars universe. I'm sorry to nerd out with you for a moment, but that's what I'm going to do. I mean, this is big. Ghostbusters, Alien, now Star Wars. And I was having this thought earlier. It's wild that Sigourney Weaver has not yet shown up in a Marvel movie, and then it came to me. She was in the Netflix series The Defenders along with Charlie Cox, Kristen Ritter, Rosario Dawson, and I think that show got mixed reviews, but I really like Sigourney Weaver in that. And I know that this show is ending, but I also really think that Sigourney Weaver should have shown up in Stranger Things. I mean, that's a show that has an affinity from stars of the 1980s. I mean, her own Aliens co-star, Paul Reiser, was in it. Winona Ryder is in it, of course. Matthew Modine, Cary Elwes, Sean Astin. How did we not get Sigourney Weaver make an appearance in Stranger Things? What to me is great about the arc of Sigourney Weaver is that franchise filmmaking helped her become a major movie star, and then she went off and did other movies that she really liked. I mean, Alien and Ghostbusters is as big as you get, and I think the concern nowadays is that these franchises don't turn the stars of them into movie stars that can carry their own movie. For instance, in 1988, Gorillas in the Mist made $61 million at the box office. If a movie like that were to come out today, it probably wouldn't even make $10 million, and it might be a straight-to-streaming movie. But the selling point was, here's Sigourney Weaver, the star of Alien. I mean, she was a big name in her own right. And again, I keep going back to this idea that franchises aren't making people into bigger names. Tom Holland is having a hard time selling a movie that isn't a Spider-Man film or a video game adaptation. Will anyone take Chris Hemsworth seriously outside of an action movie? What Chris Pratt has done with his fame is voice Mario and Garfield, two iconic characters in their own right. I mean, these people are not carrying movies based on their own celebrities. Jennifer Lawrence is having a hard time in making a movie that hits at the box office. Let's talk about Weaver's co-star in The Gorge, Anya Taylor-Joy. I really thought here's how this was going to play out. That Furiosa was going to be a big hit and make at least $500 million, and then Anya Taylor-Joy could carry movies. That was not the case. Furiosa was not a very big movie. Critics really liked it. Some of them didn't, but most of them did. And now I don't know how to feel about Anya Taylor-Joy moving forward. I mean, she's in hit shows. She's in some movies that a lot of people talk about, but is she someone who can carry a movie? In 1980s, there was no question that Sigourney Weaver can carry a movie on her own, and it's going to make a decent amount at the box office. You could make your franchise movie, and then you could go off and make other things, and those things will be hits themselves. That's not the case anymore, and I think that's not a good thing for movies moving forward, that franchises are not making their stars into movie stars. Back in the day, Tom Cruise can be in Top Gun, and then every movie he does after that is a massive hit. Will Smith can be the star of Independence Day, and then everything after that is a massive hit, no matter what movie he makes. To emphasize this point, Will Smith's The Pursuit of Happiness made $307 million in 2006. Does that movie even get released in movie theaters anymore? Getting back to Weaver, I'm sure that a lot of young actresses look at her career and go, that's the career that I want to have. My fear is that you can no longer have that kind of career, that if you latch yourself onto these franchises like Alien or Ghostbusters in today's time, that's all you can be, is those things, that you can't go off and make a movie like Gorillas in the Mist that a lot of people are going to see. You can still do good work, obviously. You can still make really good movies, but is anybody going to see those other films? Can you be as culturally relevant as Sigourney Weaver was in the 1980s, making movies like Working Girl? The formula to making a movie star just isn't as simple as it used to be. But it should be, because you don't want a career to be one arc. I like the arc of Sigourney Weaver's career. These big franchises, and then she goes off and does her own thing, and then she eventually comes back to them, and she shows up in Avatar. Now she's going to be in a Star Wars movie. That's what I want from actors. I want them to do the big movies. I want them to be in blockbusters. I want them to really go for it in those films, but I also want to see the smaller, more intimate films. The best movie star careers, in my opinion, are the ones that are filled with variety, and Sigourney Weaver's is chock filled with that. She's not someone who only makes one kind of movie. Now I want to talk about something that I do want from Sigourney Weaver moving forward. I might not be in the majority on this, but I really want this to happen. I want her to return to play Ellen Ripley one more time in a final Alien film. I just saw Alien Romulus. I want to see Kaylee Spaney with Sigourney Weaver. That's what I want. Call me basic all you want. I want to see it. I don't care about the nostalgia play or whatever else you want to complain about. I want to see it happen. I want that character to have a perfect send-off. She is one of the best film characters in the history of movies, and I don't think she got a great send-off with Alien Resurrection. I thought she was really good in that film. Again, what she's doing is brilliant. It's the rest of that movie that's kind of wacky. I want her to play Ellen Ripley in one final great Alien movie. I know it's a risky proposition, but hear me out. What if Ridley Scott's last movie is the last great Alien movie? And what if one of the last great Sigourney Weaver movies is the last Alien film, with them both coming back to the franchise? I think it needs to happen. Sigourney Weaver has only been in one Alien movie directed by Ridley Scott. We need to fix this mistake. I want to see it happen. Give me a movie where Ripley meets Michael Fassbender's David. I don't care about the timelines. I just want to see Sigourney Weaver play this iconic character one final time on screen. I don't think that's asking too much. I get it. She's already done it 4 times. She hasn't done it since 1997. It's been a long time, and I get it. We're way too beholden to nostalgia in today's world. But this is my one ask for Sigourney Weaver. Please come back to the Alien franchise. I think it needs you. It just had a really good movie with Alien Romulus. Now follow that up with the return of Ellen Ripley. I'll end on this note. Sometimes when I'm doing these career retrospective podcasts for these careers, I kind of find there to be a lot of boring movies in there there, and that's the case with a lot of people's filmography. That was not the case for Sigourney Weaver. Even the flawed movies are really entertaining. Like Ghostbusters 2 is not a very good movie, yet she is really good in it. The same for Alien Free, the same for Alien Resurrection. Based on public reception, I thought those movies would be a drag to watch, and they weren't, and I think Sigourney Weaver was the reason why. I think in the majority of the films she's in, she's the best thing in them. She's one of the best modern actresses of all time, and I just love the fact that the Alien franchise was not a one-hit wonder for her, because in the hands of a lot of other people, it would have been. I mean, how many times is there that there's a star of this big franchise and then they go on to do nothing else? But with Weaver, she has a fascinating career even outside of the Alien franchise. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.